here. All right, I'm Steve Chandler with Chandlerthinks. We are a place marketing company that's worked with over 50 different destinations and cities, communities, places in the last 8 to 10 years. It seems like a lot of people want to talk about brand implementation, and they should. Ideas without action don't get a lot of things done. And one of the communities we've worked with, maybe the best example that I know of is for brand implementation, but I'm gonna let them talk about it, is Rowan County, North Carolina. So today I've asked for James Meacham, who is the director, president, CEO, head guru of the Rowan County Salisbury Rowan County Convention Visitors Bureau, but really involved in the community in a lot of leadership ways, to join us. He led their efforts of branding. James, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Good deal. Appreciate you taking the time.
You know,
Yeah, so let's dig right into it. I've got some questions that I've sent you. We want to talk about branding implementation. You've done it very well, in my opinion, in the entire community. So share some of these pearls of wisdom for those wanting to know. The first question I have for you, what is your measure of success? That seems to be the number one question we get is, how will we know we're successful? How do you, first of all, know that your branding has been a success?
Well, a couple of things on that, Steve, and actually before success, I want to talk about how do you define the implementation? And something you had said when you did our branding in 2016 was the brand has to distinguish you from others. Your implementation has to distinguish you as well. If you don't have the correct implementation model that is broadly accepted, I don't think the branding will be that successful, especially when it comes to community branding, where there's many partners that are involved. So our implementation model, if I had to think about it, it was let's create the easiest on-ramp possible. How do we take things such as the politics of funding off the table? How do we give all the community partners the ability to easily adapt the logo, adapt the brand, adapt the taglines, and allow them to operate in space that's specific to them? So we have everything branded from emergency medical services to the health department, to Parks and Rec, to towns, the county, city, economic development commissions, tourism, arts councils, historic preservation. It's over 60 partners now that are part of the brand structure.
I think I saw the animal control, the center.
Animal control, wildlife, the airport. But you have to allow an easy on-ramp. You can't clog that on-ramp up. You have to have it open like a freeway and let them get on and give them the space and capacity to do what makes sense to them so they can tie into the story for themselves. That, to me, is the ultimate measure of implementation success. Is it broadly accepted by the partners? Is it visible? And is it being utilized? It can be both visible electronically or physically in person. And is it widely adopted? Everything from your email signature to your websites to banners around town, you name it. So that's how we've been successful. We took the politics of funding it off the table, and we had a really large on-ramp that made it easy for folks to join in.
That's amazing, and in stark contrast to, I think, what people expect. I think there's a rule of branding that assumes there's guidelines and terms and templates, and there's borders, and you stay within this to be consistent with the brand and don't waver outside of it. You seems like you're almost flying in the face of that.
So we had a very large border. We basically said, here's a whole bunch of colors, here's a whole bunch of fonts, here's the marketing firm, have fun. And a lot of folks would say, well, don't you have to? No, we don't have to sign off anything. Just go be an original. That's our brand. Be an original. Do what's important to you guys. And what's interesting is once they see all the big players, the county government, tourism, economic development, chamber of commerce, arts council, the big cities adopted early, then everyone else is, well, I went on the action. I went on the action. And then when they realized it came organic that, oh, animal services does not have to look like the airport. And the town of China Grove does not have to look like Gold Hill. And the historic preservation does not have to look like the health department. But when you see it all together, you go, well, that's one big giant family. So that's our measure of success.
Well, that's fantastic, James. Now, you've spoken a lot about partners being involved. Over 60 different organizations and entities involved, from arts to animal control to the airport. How did you get, you have any tips? How did you get all of these partners to the table and even interested in being part of a community-wide branding effort?
So it does start at the very beginning. one thing we did, and you're familiar with this, I mean, we as the tourism organization said we will fund the entire project, but we want everyone at the table. So we didn't come with a handout asking for money. We came with a handout that said we need your ideas. Early on, the more community engagement you can do, the better. The more surveys you can do, the more focus groups, more interaction. I would tell any community it does cost more because it's time, but the value and the buy-in is huge. We did some large gatherings when those were fun and legal pre-COVID. We had you come in. We had 300 community folks at a big sponsored breakfast, and we just went after it. Then did a follow-up presentation, released the brand, and then got everybody engaged. And so you start building that buy-in because it creates momentum. And so I think the most important thing for implementation beyond having this on-ramp is how do you keep momentum going? And what are the steps to do that? And it's then showcasing, oh, these guys just joined. Oh, these guys just joined. And then you start, well, I want to be on part of that table too.
You want to be left out.
Nobody wants to be left out. And then when they roll in and they say, oh, you mean we don't have to pay for it? No, we got you covered. And that's hard. There's a funding mechanism you have to create for that. Not everybody has that ability, but it leveled the playing field, large on ramp, and created momentum.
Well, that's fantastic, because there's so often I think people feel like they've got to get their brand development perfect before they allow other people to be involved. The problem is the first time a lot of communities, when they go through the branding process, if they isolate everyone at the early stages, the research, the gathering information phase, and the first time they're letting people in is once the creative's been done, the only engagement is, do you like it or not? And let me ask you this, did everyone like what you did right off the bat?
Yeah, well, and what was interesting is everyone did because we told a story of the community. I think the other thing I would add to that, Steve, is what's very important is whoever the champion of the brand is locally. Mm-hmm. If you want it to be a community brand, it can't be about you first. You have to put your ego aside. It can't be, we're doing tourism and all of you folks have to get on the bandwagon, or we're the Chamber of Commerce and all of you have to get on the bandwagon, or we're a county government, all of you have to get on the bandwagon. No, it should be the same wagon for everybody. It's a community brand. And I think what helped with the implementation and the early adoption was everyone said, they're really not in this for ego. Because you will, as an organization, whether you're EDC, Chamber, Tourism, County Government, you will be successful if everyone adopts it, more so than if you just create your own little cool brand that's just specific to tourism. And short of a few major destinations, you're stronger as a community brand. And that's why when we did the search process and identified you guys, we really wanted to find someone who develops community brands, not a tourism-specific brand, a chamber-specific brand. So you have to put your ego aside as well.
Cool. Oh, that's great stuff. One more question. This is fantastic, James. What advice would you give others that are they've just gone through a branding process, some way, shape, or form, where they've engaged some people in the community, they, in the process, they did the research and did the creative process, and they're ready to start putting it to use. It's by the way, there's my observation, it's a very scary moment for communities, right? Like,
is anybody going to use this?
Yeah, like here we go, and it's that taking that first step is tough. What advice would you give others who are ready to begin brand implementation?
So the first thing I would say is work with a firm like yours and have an implementation plan in place.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you're funny. But no, you have to have your early adopters. I mean, just projecting back what we did. Remember, we had county, arts, tourism, chamber, EDC, all lined up, ready to go. So when we released the quote-unquote brand to the community, it already came with buy-in. So if you're a community at that point, where it's like, all right, we're getting near the end, and just looking behind you, it says the Classic Southern. So the Classic Southern's your brand, just using as example. Already have that initial early adopter group ready. Have the taglines, the logos, the messaging, the creative, have that ready to go and just hit play. The other thing I would tell folks is don't be afraid to just hold the play button down. Momentum is more important than perfection when you're rolling out the brand. Momentum over perfection any day. Do not let perfect be the enemy of good. Get it out in the community. Get it out fast. Don't wait for folks. Whoever's ready, let them go. And I think the other thing, as we talked about earlier, just give folks the palettes and say, here's our little design firm. Go. As soon as you're ready, go. I don't need to sign off. Just build momentum, go. And I think if you can get the momentum moving, that's what we did. I mean, we hit play and it's just who's ready, and just move. Next thing, everybody's like, wow, that was fast. So you also, with that, the last little thing, if you go fast, the people who didn't like the color red or wanted another word or it should have been a different shade of blue or yellow, whatever, you've moved so fast that almost becomes irrelevant, because next thing you know, 14, 15 partners have already adopted it, and they're like, well, I'm not going to change. If you can do that and you can somehow find a way to take the politics of funding out of it, which I mean is basically if you can find a champion to fund the whole thing for everybody, which is what we did for an entire community, you'll do that. So momentum over perfection, have your early adopters ready.
Yeah.
And during the release, have all the early adopters come out at the same time, not just here's the one big brand logo and in 4 months we'll get everybody else's done. No, you probably remember we had everybody's ready. That's right. And just boom. Next thing you know, the community is like, wow, these big folks have already adopted it. And
well, it goes back to what you're saying of it's not about one organization. If you don't roll out with many people involved, then it's just your organization. And so now all of a sudden it starts the CVB or whoever led the effort versus this is a community-wide thing.
You don't want folks to go, oh, this is a county thing. This is a city thing. This is a chamber thing. This is a tourism thing. This is an EDC thing. It's the community thing.
That's right. Wonderful. That's all the time we have, James. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.